love now and
Did you follow
always.
Just tell I love her.
Love is stronger than anything.
You feel the love of love.
And I love you more than anything.
There's still love.
From the New York Times, I'm Anna Martin. This is Modern Love. And today, Susan Gellis's Modern Love essay in its entirety. It's a story about putting yourself out there in order to find love, and how daunting and excruciating and cringy that can be, especially for Susan, because Susan went to singles mixers. Here's Susan Gellis reading her essay, Single and Surrounded by a Wall of Men.
Sometimes I play a kind of game where I think about how different my life would be if I had made other choices. One thing leads to an unforeseeable other. After spending my 20s as a would-be musician, I attended law school in New York City. I graduated owing about $100,000 in student loans. Luckily, I found a job at a terrific but demanding law firm where I was assigned to share an office with an associate named Daniel. Daniel and I bonded like soldiers who have a trench during wartime. We were both shy, but working together on days, nights, and weekends has a way of breaking down reserve. He would send me fake emails from terrifying law partners, and I'd jump out of empty offices and startle him. We had no romantic connection, but we talked to each other through our relationship messes. We agreed that socializing in unstructured settings was particularly frightening. So we hid in our office and avoided the firm's weekly cocktail hour because schmoozing with unfamiliar coworkers put both of us in a defensive crouch. But even the best of wartime alliances eventually weaken. After 3 years, Daniel left the firm and moved to another city. It took me another 2 years to pay off my loans. And soon after that, I fled the battlefield and joined the legal department of a slower-paced publishing company. With more free time, I gathered my courage and signed up for a singles event, run by a group that held regular mixers. I was 37, at my life's midpoint, and it looked like a dull downward slide from where I stood. So I squashed my misgivings and showed up at the next mixer. It had 9 attendees, 5 men and 3 other women besides me. We each spoke about ourselves into a microphone. Then came the part I always hated, the mingling. The event's organizer gave the usual admonishments. None of us were to be rude, and if someone approached us, we should talk to them for at least a minute. Chairs scraped and we rose. I spotted an attractive guy and approached him. He beamed, came toward me, and then swerved to speak with the woman he really had in mind. I saw a second guy and scooted over. "Hi there," I said. "Sorry," he said, and kept walking. I left and promised myself I would never go to a singles mixer again. I emailed Daniel, who wrote back that the same group was sponsoring another mixer in a month, and I should go. Very funny, I thought. I began to research single-parent adoption and signed a contract for a small co-op apartment. One Friday afternoon, a few weeks later, I was sitting at my desk at my blessedly quiet job. Here, no one urgently needed a memo summarizing legal research. No one expected me to work that night. This was peacetime lawyering. I decided to clean up my email inbox, and there it was. That email Daniel had sent about the singles mixer. The event would start at 6 that very night in Midtown Manhattan. I was dressed in a flannel shirt, jeans, and sneakers. But what did it matter? I wouldn't meet anyone. And who needed love anyway? Then again, maybe it would be fun. But wouldn't I have to talk to people? I can leave at any time, I reminded myself. This mixer had about 80 attendees who sat on chairs in a large high school classroom. It took an hour to pass around the microphone. I scribbled notes of what certain men said about themselves. This one was a contractor who liked Shakespeare. That one was a lawyer who liked opera. Then came the dreaded mingling. An angry-looking man stomped over and demanded to know how I was doing. Another man, this one with a fixed grin, asked what kind of movies I liked. The mingling was supposed to last for 30 minutes, but I couldn't pretend to be perky and relaxed for that long. If I didn't leave soon, I'd start telling inappropriate personal stories, like the time when a nun in elementary school told me I'd never amount to anything because I spoke so softly. After I chatted with a few more men who didn't interest me, I hurried to the bathroom and locked myself in a stall. Why was I putting myself through this again? It was exhausting. Maybe love was overrated. Maybe love was just what people claimed to feel for anyone who'd put up with them. I leaned against the wall and closed my eyes. I could hear women chatting, turning on faucets, flushing toilets. I thought, I'll just wait here until the mingling is over. Then I'll go back and see if anyone has written down my ID numbers, someone they'd like to date.
We'll be right back.
I went back to the classroom, only to discover that the mingling wasn't quite done. Immediately, the lawyer who liked opera positioned himself in front of me. He was immaculately dressed in a suit. His dark hair was cut short, and he looked at me with his penetrating brown eyes. I said, "Hi, I remember you. You're a lawyer." "I'm a lawyer too," I said. "I used to be a litigator. Now I'm in-house at a publishing company. What kind of law do you practice?" "Real estate," he said flatly. I said, "Huh. And you like opera. What period do you most like, or what composer?" His expression eased just a bit. "I like Puccini." A dim memory came to me of sitting in a music library a decade earlier, listening to an opera that I thought was terrible. I said, "I remember listening to Tosca once, years ago. It was so overblown." There was a rather long pause. Somewhere behind the lawyer, the organizers urged people to take their seats. "Tosca is my favorite opera," the lawyer said. It was all so deliciously awful. The mingling, how I was dressed, the futility of trying to meet anyone. Even when I tried to show interest in a person, I unwittingly insulted him. I couldn't help it. I laughed and said, "I'm sorry. It was probably a scratchy recording, or I was in a grumpy mood that afternoon." "No doubt," the lawyer said. All of us took our seats and wrote down the ID numbers of people we liked and handed in our scorecards. Then we waited for the computer to sort the results. All of us took our seats and wrote down the ID numbers of people we liked and handed in our scorecards. Then we waited for the computer to sort the results. I matched with the lawyer, whose name was Richard. A week later, we enjoyed a nice dinner at an Italian restaurant. Richard wore another impeccable suit, and I wore a dress. I asked him, "If you hadn't talked with me during the mingling session, would you still have written down my ID number?" "Oh, no," he said. "I would never date someone I hadn't at least spoken with first." He tilted his head, remembering. Then he said, "It was hard to get to you that evening." Yes, I thought, because I was hiding in the bathroom. You were surrounded by a wall of men. You poor deluded one, I thought. I had to get through a wall of men, he repeated. I decided to be honest, and I said, there was no wall of men. Yes, he insisted there was. I was hiding in the bathroom, I said. There was a wall of men, he said again. That's probably the beginning of love. When you see someone in a way that defies reality, but which makes perfect sense to you. On our second date, we went to the Metropolitan Opera and saw Tosca. Afterwards, the two of us strolled along side streets, talking excitedly about how evil Scarpia was and the terrible fate that befell Cavaradossi. It's nice of you to forgive me for insulting your favorite opera, I said. Richard shrugged. At least you'd heard of it, he said. As we walked, we held hands and talked about musicals. Somehow, we found ourselves back by the fountain in front of the opera house. It was midnight. Sing something by Rodgers and Hart, I said. Richard considered it. Then he sang, I'm wild again, beguiled again, a simpering, whimpering child again. We married 2 years later, and more than a decade after that, we're the parents of 10-year-old twin boys. When I ask myself how I managed to get so lucky, I think, because my life in music didn't work out. Because I went to an expensive law school even though I had no money. Because I needed a well-paying job. Because the law firm assigned me Daniel as an office mate. Because Daniel sent me that email reminder. But most crucial, I think, is that I stopped hiding in the bathroom before it was too late.
If you want to hear my interview with Susan, it's a very fun one, check out the episode called Don't Hide in the Bathroom Stall on the Modern Love podcast feed. If you have a story that you want to share with us, we'd love to hear it. We're always looking for good stories and new perspectives for the Modern Love column, no matter where you come from or who you are. To find out how to submit your own story, go to nytimes.com/modernlovesubmission. Modern Love is produced by Julia Botero, Christina Josa, and Hans Buetow. It's edited by our executive producer, Jen Poyant and Annabelle Bacon. This episode was mixed by Sophia Landman. Our show was recorded by Maddie Masiello. The Modern Love theme music is by Dan Powell. Original music by Rowan Nemisto, Marian Lozano, Alicia Baitup, Pat McCusker, and Dan Powell. Digital production by Nell Galogli and Mahima Chablani. The Modern Love column is edited by Daniel Jones. Mia Lee is the editor of Modern Love Projects. I'm Anna Martin. Thanks for listening.